2382, 2383, 2384, 2385, 2386, 2387, 2388, 2389, 2390, 2391, 2392, 2393, 2394, 2395, 2396, 2397, 2398, 2399, 2400, 2401, 2402, 2403, 2404, 2405, 2406, 2407, 2408, 2409. Senator Abdullah Adamu, Nasarawa West.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I am Senator Abdullah Adamu and I represent Nasarawa West Senatorial District. I rise to move for the adoption of the votes and proceedings of Tuesday, the 6th of June, the year 2017. I so move.
Senator Philip Gunka, Nasarawa North.
I'm Senator Philip Arua Junka, representing Nasarawa North. I rise to support the motion, the move that by Senator Abdullah Adamu, that the vote and proceedings of Tuesday, 6th June be adopted, and I so move.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the votes and proceedings of Tuesday, 6 June 2017 hereby approved, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Votes and proceedings of Tuesday, 6 June 2017 is hereby approved. Announcement. I would like to acknowledge the presence of students of St. Mary Polytechnic, Suleja, Niger State, staff and students of Complete Man International School, Yaraka, Niger State, staff and students of Kingdom Heritage Model School in Yanya, Abuja, who are in our gallery to watch our proceedings. I wish them a fruitful observation of the Senate proceedings. Please sit down.
Petitions.
Leader of the Senate. Yeah, point of order, Senator Dambaba.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I come under Order 42, and I remain Senator Ibrahim Abdullahi Dambaba, representing the good people of Sokoto South Senatorial District. Mr. President, with your permission, I want to read Order 42 and 52.
Go ahead.
Order 42. The matter for discussion shall, if possible, be referred to the President of the Senate before commencement of the day's sitting, and the President of the Senate shall refuse to allow the claim unless he is satisfied that the matter is definite and urgent. If the claim is allowed by the President of the Senate and the leave of the Senate is given by at least 1/5 of the senators, the matter shall stand over till the next legislative day. Not more than one such motion may be made at the same sitting. Mr. President, under Order 52, notice shall not be dispensed with in the case of a motion or in respect of any other proceeding for which notice is required, except with the consent of the President of the Senate and the general assent of the senators present. Mr. President, with your leave, I want to present.
What is it about?
Mr. President, this is a matter that has to do with the 2017 Hajj operations, and is a very sensitive and crucial matter of national importance, which needs to be heard.
Distinguished colleagues, Senator Tambaba did bring this to my attention on a motion to regards the Hajj fares being charged by the Hajj Commission, and according to our rules, we need the leave of our colleagues so that I can proceed. Those in favor that will accept this motion say aye. Those against say nay. Proceed. You can go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will read the motion now. Extortion of pilgrims by the National Hajj Commission of Nigeria, NACON. This motion is co-sponsored by another 39 senators who also share my views on the importance of this motion. The Senate notes that the National Hajj Commission of Nigeria, NACON, is responsible for the regulation and control of matters concerning the welfare of Nigerian pilgrims, including but not limited to approval of annual Hajj packages payable by intending pilgrims. The Senate also notes that the Commission on May 29, 2017 released the approved 2017 Hajj packages for 23 states. Further notes that the approved fare packages for the 23 states so far released, which include Sokoto, Kano, Kaduna, Ogun, Oshun, Anambra, Edo, Plateau, Adamawa, Bauchi, Oyo, Benue, Kebbi, Yobe, Niger, Zamfara, Ekiti, Kwara, Gombe, Nasarawa, Taraba, FCT and the armed forces averages to about 1,555,000 naira per pilgrim. The Senate, aware that approved tour operators in Nigeria, which are profit-making businesses, are offering cheaper Hajj packages to intending pilgrims. For instance, Harsha Travel and Tours is offering a package of 1,250,000 naira, inclusive of $500 pocket money per pilgrim. This is about 300,000 naira lower than the average package approved by the Hajj Commission. The airfare charged by the tour operator is $1,000 per pilgrim, compared to $1,650 charged by the Hajj Commission. Aware also that the National Hajj Commission, NACON, negotiates and provides accommodation for all pilgrims at Medina, Mina, and Arafat on behalf of all states. It also takes responsibility for feeding arrangements at Medina, Mina, and Arafat. The Senate observes that the cost of feeding the pilgrim, which is inbuilt in the fare packages, constitutes a burden on the pilgrim, since his or her right of feeding is circumscribed. The Senate is worried that apart from the imposition of meals which are not standard and served at the right time, the peculiarities of the feeding behavior of pilgrims are not taken into account. Consideration is not given to pilgrims with specific ailments, e.g. diabetes. It is also expensive. Mr. President, there are also allegations that this centralized system of feeding was introduced in order to favor certain foreign food contractors over their Nigerian counterparts resident in Saudi Arabia and for self-gain by Nigerian officials. The charge is 15 Saudi riyals per meal twice a day for 35 days at Makkah and Medina, Amina, and at the airport, which translates to about 113,000 naira per head. One of the issues that arises here is that there is no mechanism for refund for missed meals or where the pilgrim spends less than 35 days in the Holy Land. Further worried that the intending pilgrim is being asked to pay for a package which is bloated with charges that are unfair and unnecessary. For instance, a total of about 20,000 naira in some cases is charged as administrative charges and development levy per head. Convinced that the 2017 Hajj fare packages approved by the Hajj Commission lacks competitiveness when compared with the package offered by the private tour operators, they are unfair and unrealistic. The Senate further convinced that there is an urgent need for intervention on this matter of national importance in order to save Nigerian intending pilgrims from unfair Hajj seat pricing, bearing in mind the zero tolerance stance for corruption of the present administration. Mr. President, the Senate accordingly resolves to 1. Urge the federal government to immediately direct National Hajj Commission of Nigeria to review the 2017 Hajj fare downwards to a realistic, human, and fair amount affordable by pilgrims in this time of recession and economic hardship. The Commission should also be directed to reverse the unpopular, much talked about force feeding policy, since it negates the principle of freedom of choice for pilgrims. 2. Constitute an ad hoc committee to investigate the circumstances surrounding the present feeding regime and the exorbitant airfare as fixed by the National Hajj Commission, with a view to exposing any sharp practice therein and make appropriate recommendations concerning its findings to the Senate within 7 days, 1 week. Mr. President, sir, I wish to further emphasize that there are about 3 to 4 components which are, to my mind, need to be reviewed. 1, the Hajj fare itself. It has been established that private tour operators, some of them are offering $1,000 and less than $1,000 for the same Hajj package that the National Hajj Commission of Nigeria set $1,650. Secondly, Max Air of recent, Max Air in spite of the fact that they never had sufficient Umrah pilgrims, they had only 160, they offered a fare of 350 naira, 350,000 naira, while the Nigerian Hajj Commission, their own fare is 553,000 naira. Mr. President, with the case of feeding is not standardized. Pilgrims are paid at the time when the food contractors want to serve them. Most of the pilgrims are at the mosque when food is being served. And therefore, by the time they are back to their respective abodes, the food must have gone bad or must have gotten to a stage where they will not be able to consummate the food that has been served to them. There are also pilgrims that have special disabilities who may not be able to take the normal food that is being served. Mr. President, with the issue of accommodation, the accommodation that is being served, Nigerian Hajj Commission negotiates the accommodation and the feeding in Medina. It is ironical, Mr. President, if the National Hajj Commission as a regulator will also become an operator, because by getting itself involved in the negotiation for the accommodation and for the feeding of pilgrims, is no longer regulating the activities of private tour operators or pilgrims welfare agencies from states. Mr. President, the accommodation that is given at Mina and Arafat, pilgrims from Nigeria are not told beforehand the type of tents that they are supposed to be accommodated. They are not told the number of people that are supposed to be in each tent. Previously, it has always been that in every tent, you will see pilgrims being packed like sardines inside the tents. This issue has to be looked into because we believe that there is some kind of sharp practice or sharp practices involved, and that is why pilgrims are not given fair value for.
Senator Dambaba, what is your prayer? Okay, can you get to the prayer?
Okay. I will read it again, Mr. President, sir. Prayer number 1, sir. Urge the federal government to immediately direct NACON to review the 2017 Hajj fare downwards to a realistic, human, and fair amount affordable by pilgrims in this time of recession and economic hardship. The Commission should also be directed to reverse the unpopular, much talked about forced feeding policy, since it negates the principle of freedom of choice for pilgrims. The second prayer being that the Senate should constitute an ad hoc committee to investigate the circumstances surrounding the present feeding regime and the exorbitant airfare as fixed by National Hajj Commission, with a view to exposing any sharp practice therein and make appropriate recommendation concerning its findings to the Senate within 7 days, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any seconder to this? Senator Issa Misa.
Thank you, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues. Senator Comrade Issa Hamamiso, representing Bauchi Central, Mr. President. I rise to second this very, very important motion. Mr. President, before seconding the motion, I would like to give my own understanding of this Hajj fair. We are not talking of appropriation, but we are talking of exploitation. Because this money, they are charging 1.5 million or over 1.5 million. This is something that they can do with 800,000. because some people are taking the advantage under this government that is fighting corruption to enrich themselves. And that is what is happening. Mr. President, this Hajj fair can be done with 800,000. I've gone to Hajj so many times, and it is one of the 5 pillars of Islam, which if you have the privilege, you can go. A lot of people have this privilege, have this means, but we are talking of the exploitation from the Hajj Commission. So many of them, they connive with the people in Saudi Arabia who are giving accommodation. Because I remember the time when the present government took place, the one in Bauchi, we found out that so many, about 250 million in what? Just one agent connived with one agent in Saudi Arabia to take that money. So, Mr. President, we are talking about exploitation, not appropriation. So we are talking about the corruption that is taking place where some people are using this avenue to enrich themselves. I think it is not fair for us to charge ordinary person 1,500,000 at this time of this recession. And it is very, very important. Our people are complaining. We have to do something about it so that this thing can be reviewed to about 800,000. I think that is my own point. Before I sit down, I want to commend the mover of this motion. It is very, very important, and it is our people are watching to see what we are going to do here. Thank you.
Senator Kabir Gaya, then.
Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, I am Kabir Gaya, representing the people of Kano South from Kano State. Mr. President, I wanted to commend Senator Adam Baba for bringing this motion, and I'm a co-sponsor of this motion. And I believe this motion is a very straightforward motion, Mr. President. We should go to prayers and insist that, I'm requesting that we go to prayers because it's clearly stated that these organizations are extorting Nigerians simply because the fares by other private Hajj tour organizations, they are only charging 1.2 million, while they are charging 1.5 for common Nigerians. This is unfair, and I support the prayer, the first prayer read by, proposed by Senator Dambaba to this effect. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, I think we just go straight to the prayers. But does anybody just want to contribute? One more person? Okay, Senator Kurfi.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Is it like this? Thank you very much, Mr. President. My distinguished colleagues, this is a very important motion moved by my colleagues. First of all, I would like to thank you for moving this very important motion. But I want to draw the attention of us. I have been going to Makkah for the past 30 years. This issue that we are discussing, Mr. President, by the is all hinged on dollar. If the dollar is rising, definitely everything will go up. So I'm not saying that the fare is not high. It is high, but this
Fire on! Fire on!
What I want to draw attention of the people. I'm not going to dance your own to What? They are supporting you.
The series colleague, Naja Kurfi. Oh, Kurfi. Yeah, Senator Kurfi. I did. No, maybe my voice is not clear, but I meant Senator Umar Kurfi. That's why he got up.
So thank you very much. Thank very much, Mr. President, for protecting me. Thank you very much, Mr. President. So,
You are protected.
The issue I am still saying is that despite the fact that dollar has gone up, that doesn't mean that we should increase this fare to this amount. This fare can be actually reduced to a reasonable amount. And more importantly, this country now, we have so many people going to Makkah. In other countries like Indonesia, Pakistan, they try to regulate them. Because those who have been to Makkah, they shouldn't be going there. That's why we are always this things up. What? No. I want excellencies. What actually God is the Quran said, what people hajj, what umratulillah. You should go to Makkah and umrah once in your life. So if now we are, please, sir, please, you better protect me. Protect me, please. Huh? No,
Address the chair.
Point of order is minority leader. Are you coming on point of order? Yes, point of order.
Mr. President, 56.9 and 56.9 says that when a senator is speaking on, no senator may converse aloud or make any noise or disturbance to interrupt him. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, there's too much noise, and we need to cut this noise so that we can listen to our colleagues and then we can make proper contributions.
Thank you, man. To repent to order sustained. Distinguished colleagues, let us bring down this noise. It's getting too much so that we can make some progress. Senator Kofi, quickly, if you can just round up.
So, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, I am 100% in support of this motion. But the point I'm saying is this thing now, we should not forget that there is dollar effect in it. So what we should do now, we should try as well to see that we reduce this fare to a reasonable fare so that people can afford it. NAPCON can be invited so that they can reduce this because there are so many allies who have quoted. So if we can take the lowest quotation, that will be in favor of the Muslims. And more important, like I rightly said earlier, that those of us who have been going, if there is need, it can be regulated. If you have been to Makkah 3-4 times, you can allow those who have not been going there. In Indonesia and the Pakistan, they normally try as much to reduce it. Because after all, what Allah said in the Quran is, what people hajj, what umratulillah. We should go to Makkah in our life or Umrah once in our life. So with this, Mr. Chairman and my distinguished colleague, I think I support the motion, and the fare should be reasonably reduced so that those who can afford to go can still go there. Thank you very much.
Distinguished colleague, go straight to the prayers. Prayer 1, urge the federal government to immediately direct NACON to review the 2017 Hajj fare downwards to a realistic, human and fair amount afforded by pilgrims in this time of recession and economic hardship. The Commission should also be directed to reverse the unpopular, much talked about force-feeding policy since it negates the principle of freedom and choice for pilgrims. Those in favor of prayer 1 say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 2, constitute an ad hoc committee to investigate the circumstances surrounding the present feeding regime and exorbitant airfare as fixed by NACON with a view to exposing any sharp practice therein and make appropriate recommendations concerning its findings to the Senate within 7 days, 1 week. Okay, Senator Dino Melai.
Mr. President, my respected colleagues, Dino Melai, Kogi West. Mr. President, we have standing committees in this chamber, and the standing committees should be given opportunity to carry out their responsibilities. And this falls under the core responsibility of the Foreign Affairs. So I want to amend the prayer to say that instead of ad hoc committee, the Foreign Affairs Committee should kind of.
Can I have a seconder to that? Senator Gobri.
I second exactly what Dino Malai said, that we should give the standing committee that opportunity to revisit this issue.
Thank you. So, prayer 2 as amended. Let me put the question. Prayer 2 is amended to say that the standing committee of Foreign Affairs to investigate the circumstances surrounding the present. Let me put the question that the Standing Committee for Foreign Affairs constitute investigations of the circumstances surrounding the present feeding regime and exorbitant airfare as fixed by NACOM with a view to exposing any sharp practice therein and make appropriate recommendation concerning its finding to Senate within 7 days. Those in favor of prayer to us amended say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Please, can we ensure that this report is back in 7 days? Thank you. Leader of the Senate. Yeah, point of order, Senator Mustafa. Senator Mustafa.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, Sani Mustafa Mohammed, representing the good people of Niger South. Personal explanation, Order 43. By the indulgence of the Senate and the leave of the President of the Senate, a senator may make a personal explanation, although there may be no question before the Senate. But no controversial matter may be brought forward, nor may debate arise upon the explanation. The terms of the proposed statement shall be submitted in details to the President of the Senate when this leave to make it is sought.
Go ahead.
Mr. President,
Go ahead.
Mr. President, I stand to bring the notice of this hallowed chamber that a bridge at Gidamai on Moka Bokani Mekera Road in my senatorial district has completely been destroyed by heavy flood recently. It is important to note that the highway connects Kontogora to Makwa and most part of the northwestern states. We all know how strategic Makwa is in terms of linking the northern parts of the country and most part of the southern states. Once movement is hampered, the economy becomes grossly affected. At the moment, thousands of motorists are stranded and the goods they are carrying are perishing and getting destroyed by the rain because of the collapsed bridge. This situation is so pathetic and needs urgent action. My prayer, I plead with this hallowed chamber to take every possible and necessary action to salvage the situation by mandating FEMA to use the provision for emergency repairs under the North Central Route to urgently intervene. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, distinguished colleague. I heard that. I'm sure the chairman, FEMA, is here, and I'm sure you can meet with him later to see how they can help and relieve the suffering of the people opposed to this event. Leader of the Senate, point of order, Senator Dino Melai.
Mr. President, my very respected colleagues, Dino Melai, Kogi West. Mr. President, Order 43, by the indulgence of the Senate and the leave of the President of the Senate, a senator may make a personal explanation, though there may be no question before the Senate, but no controversial matter may be brought forward, nor debate arise upon the explanation. The terms of the proposed statement shall be submitted in detail to the President of the Senate when the leave to make it is sought. Mr. President, my respected colleagues, I bring to the notice of this very important chamber this morning infraction and abuse of the act, of an act as passed by this Senate and indeed the National Assembly. Mr. President, I have here the certain political Public and Judicial Office Holders' Salaries and Allowances, etc. Amendment Act 2008. Mr. President, this act was passed by the National Assembly and assented to by Mr. President in 2008. And this act is taking care of salaries, of Mr. President, Vice President, Senators, Auditor General, and even the permanent secretaries in this country. Mr. President, the act stipulates clearly what remuneration and salary should be enjoyed by permanent secretaries, director generals, and the head of service. And on part 1 of the act, it is clear under severance that permanent secretaries are supposed to benefit only their severance to the tune of 300% of their basic salary. But an aberration was committed. There's a letter here I have, Mr. President. It reads, restoration of personal security and overseas treatment for life for retired head of the civil service of the Federation and the federal permanent secretaries. The letter reads, thus, Mr. President, this is to inform you that in a bid to ensure enhanced welfare package for retired head of the civil service of the Federation and federal permanent secretaries, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, GCFR, has graciously approved the restoration of their personal securities and overseas treatment for life. Mr. President, I repeat, Dr. Goodluck Ebele Azikiwe Jonathan, GCFR, has graciously approved the restoration for their personal security and overseas treatment for life. And if the wish and desire of a president will now override the provisions of an act passed by the parliament, then we are in a banana republic. The president of the Senate is number 3 in this country. The Speaker of the House of Representatives, the Senate President, they do not enjoy overseas treatment for one day, not to talk of life. You know how many permanent secretaries we have in this country that are retired? And you know what this will cost Nigeria in tunes of billions, hundreds of billions, if we begin to sponsor every permanent secretary for overseas treatment. And once this is authenticated, it means for you to be a retired perm sec, Mr. President, you must have attained the age of 60 or 65. And the older you get, the more frequent your sickness, and we must be taking you abroad for life. Mr. President, this is in contravention of the provision of this act as passed by the National Assembly. So my desire this morning and prayer is that maybe we propose the relevant committee on establishment to call to order that the wishes and aspirations and desires of a president or any public officer cannot override the provisions of the law. And this should be completely jettisoned and reversed so that the law can be respected. Mr. President, I so submit.
This is in line with our rules. Can be no further debate on this. It came under personal explanation. But I think the committee on the establishment will look into this and take necessary action. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the first business of the day is the presentation of the report of the Committee on Establishment and Public Service Matters on the National Institute for Legislative Studies, NILS Act, Amendment Bill 2017. Mr. President, may wish to invite Senator Emmanuel Polka, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the Senate to receive the report.
Senator Polka.
Mr. President, Senator Polka Emmanuel Bayelsa Central. I rise to move that the Senate do receive the report of the Committee on Establishment and Public Service matters on the National Institute for Legislative Studies, NILS Act, Amendment Bill 2017, SB 359. Mr. President, I so move.
Senator Wakil Menai, Bauchi South.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, distinguished senators, my name is Senator Malam Ali Wakili Menai. I represent Bauchi South. I rise to second the motion as heavily moved that the Senate do receive the report of the Committee on Establishment and Public Service Matters on the National Institute for Legislative Studies, NILS, Act Amendment Bill 2017, SB 359, as so moved by my distinguished senator. I so second, sir.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the Senate do receive the report of the Committee on Establishment and Public Service Matters on the National Institute for Legislative Studies, NILS Act, NILS Amendment Bill 2017, SB 359. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Porker, come and lead the report, please. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the second business of the day is the presentation of the report of the Committee on Establishment and Public Service Matters on the Institute of Chartered Biochemists and Molecular Biologists Bill 2017. Mr. President, we wish to invite Senator Emmanuel Porker, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the Senate to receive the report.
Senator Porker.
Mr. President, Senator Porker, Emmanuel, I rise to move that the Senate do receive the report of the Committee on Establishment and Public Service Matters on Institute of Chartered Biochemists and Molecular Biology of Nigeria Bill 2017 SB 265. I so move, Mr. President.
Senator Yusuf, Taraba Central.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to second the motion that the Senate do receive the report of the Committee on Establishment and Public Service Matters on the Institute of Chartered Biochemists and Molecular Biologists of Nigeria Bill 2017 SB 283, so I second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the Senate do receive the report of the Committee on Establishment and Public Service Matters on the Institute of Chartered Biochemists and Molecular Biologists of Nigeria Bill 2017 SB 283. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Porker, come and lay the report, please. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the third business of the day is the presentation of the report of the Joint Committee on Science and Technology and Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters on the National Research and Innovation Establishment Bill 2017. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Robert Borofes, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the Senate to receive the report.
Senator Borofes.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Robert Ajayi Borofes, representing Ondo North. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to move that Senate do receive the report of the Joint Committee on Science and Technology and Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters on National Research and Innovation Bill 2017 SB 239. I so move.
Senator Rozoko.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Rose Oko, Cross River North. I rise to second the motion that the Senate do receive the report of the Joint Committee on Science and Technology and Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters, National Research and Innovation Establishment Bill 2017, SB 239. I so move.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the Senate do receive the report of the Joint Committee on Science and Technology and Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters on National Research and Innovation Establishment, etc. Bill 2017, SB 239. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Boro, please come and lay the report. Thank you. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the first order of the day is a motion standing in the name of Senator Godswill Akpabio on the continued voters registration exercise, matters arising. Mr. President, may we invite Senator Godswill Akpabio to move the motion.
Distinguished colleagues, please, you can see on our other paper that we have about 4 motions. We normally, if you know by what we had agreed, Tuesday's day of motions, we made that this an exceptional case. So I'm going to allow very, very limited contributions so that we can go through this motion as quick as possible. Please, I'll seek your cooperation. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished colleagues, my name is Godswill Akpabio, representing the good people of Akwa Ibom Northwest Senatorial District, and by the grace of my colleagues, the minority leader of the Senate. Mr. President, I want to thank you and my colleagues for the opportunity to bring this very urgent matter, which affects the entire nation, to the notice of these red chambers. It is on the continuous registration that is ongoing right now in respect of INEC. So, Mr. President, I will go straight into the motion. The Senate notes that the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, commenced a nationwide continued voters registration exercise, which they call CVR, on the 27th day of April 2017. The Senate also notes that the exercise is meant for Nigerians who attain the ages of 18 years between the last exercise. I take that again. The Senate notes that the exercise is meant for Nigerians who attain 18 years between the last exercise to this day. Those who were not previously registered, those who previously registered but whose names could not be found in the voter registers, and those whose cards were lost or damaged. The Senate is aware that the exercise is ongoing in all the Commission's offices all over the country, in the 774 local governments across the entire nation, but not at the ward level. The Senate observes that the exercise has been faced with several challenges across the country, which include malfunctioning of the direct data capture machines, non-availability of the machines in some local government areas, slowness of the direct data capture machines, inadequate manpower, and inaccessibility of registration centers from prospective registrants, especially those residing in the rural areas. The Senate observes that the challenges are worse in states like Osun,
And I did mention Akwa Ibom State, and I think it's not even ongoing in Anambra, which has elections coming up, I think November this year, and so it's almost out of time, since it ought to have been done 6 months before. And then where only 30 voters are said to be registered per day in each of the local government areas, despite the number of people trunking those centers. And of course, despite the fact that almost each of the local government areas have more than 10 wards each. Whereas governorship election will be taking place in Osun State in June 2018, and these challenges, if not tackled, will jeopardize or make the election less credible if urgent steps are not taken by the government. The Senate is aware that the inability of INEC, in this case, to effectively address the challenges of the registration exercise can lead to disenfranchisement of voters, which could result in serious voter apathy, which may render the 2019 upcoming elections unacceptable, not credible, and possibly undemocratic. Accordingly, the Senate resolves, 1, to urge the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to undertake the Continuous Voters Registration Exercise, CVR, on a continuing and permanent basis in the respective polling units until all prospective registrants are registered. 2, the Senate urges the INEC to decentralize the registration exercise currently going on only in local government headquarters, should decentralize such to the ward levels to further ensure that people who ought to be captured are captured. The Senate therefore wishes to mandate the Committee on INEC to monitor the exercise and report progress and challenges periodically to the Senate to ensure that all Nigerians are taken into account and the future elections are not jeopardized. Mr. President, I so move.
Senator Dela Olanimeko.
Mr. President, distinguished colleague, Adiola Solomon Olamilekon, representing Lagos West Senatorial District. Mr. President, distinguished colleague, while seconding this motion, I want to commend the mover of this motion because it's timely and it's very, very important and crucial. Mr. President, the current registration exercise going on in the country is nothing but a sham. As it is today, Mr. President, we are not doing any registration. What we are simply doing is just gathering in one local government, people coming out in troops to register. At the end of the day, you find out that INEC, we only succeed in registering just 5 or 10 people in a population of about 3,000 to 4,000. Mr. President, I want to call on the Senate that what is out there as far as this registration is concerned is nothing to write home about. INEC is not prepared. INEC is not prepared. For instance, Mr. President, in each local government, this registration is centralized to the extent that you can only get registered in the local government headquarters. And when you get to the local government headquarters, you only find one registering data capturing machine, or maximum 2. Maximum 1 or 2. And at the end of the day, within 2 to 3 hours, this same machine will back up. And they will tell you that they cannot carry out or do any registration again for the day. So, Mr. President, I believe that the prayer sought by this motion the emphasis should be that this registration exercise be decentralized to go to the polling units across the country. And we should not wait till when the election is about 4 or 5 months before we start running helter-skelter. We should start now, and we should learn how to do things in the proper way. And so INEC should be called upon to decentralize this thing with immediate effect and bring out more data capturing machine so that Nigerians can be registered and fully prepared for 2019 general election. So, Mr. President, the number of manpowers as well should be increased by INEC. So I'm in total support of this motion, and accordingly I second this motion. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Theodore Oji, Abia Central.
Thank you, Your Excellency, the Senate President, my distinguished colleagues. My name is Senator Theodore Oji Ochendo, Abia Central. I rise to support this motion that is moved by the minority leader. The content of this motion captures exactly what is on ground in most of the states. Nothing is happening in most of the states. Mr. President, I want to remind INEC that the most essential ingredient of this exercise is prospective voters. Once the voters are not there, then the exercise is useless. But these voters are not doing anything because of the distance of the centers. The centers are far away from where these prospective voters live. And they have to be motivated to go and vote. How do you motivate them? You motivate them by providing transport. And that is what some state governments are doing right now, knowing fully well that this exercise is very essential. It's an exercise that leads to winning election or failing election. Therefore, what we will do is to help INEC to tell the state governments to help the voters by providing transport that will take the voters, prospective voters, to the registration centers if INEC cannot bring the centers close to these people. This is the worst case that is hindering this project. Others are there. We have been living with them. The machines are not working. But the human beings, those who are to vote, must be motivated. That is my contribution, Your Excellency. Thank you.
Senator Peter Nwabushi.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Peter Nwabushi. Mr. President, I don't think, because I don't want to repeat what my colleagues have said, this is a very, very important motion. And like you said at the beginning, we do not need to waste time on an issue that is of national importance and very important to Nigerians. So, Mr. President, I would urge you to put the question so that we can answer it once and for all, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Peter Nwabushi. Prayer 1, urge the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to undertake the continuing voters registration exercise on a continuing and permanent basis in the respective polling unit until all prospective registrants are registered. Those in favor of prayer 1 say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. There is a prayer 2, urge the Independent National Electoral Commission to decentralize the registration exercise on ward basis and to further decentralize when the wards are large. Those in favor of prayer 2 say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 3. Prayer 3, mandate the Committee on INEC to monitor the exercise and report progress and challenges periodically to the Senate. Those in favor of prayer 3 say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Wakil.
I need to give you a piece of information, but you have already ruled. I spoke to my constituent, the chairman of INEC. He is in total agreement with the principles and enunciations of this motion. But what he informed me is that right now they don't have the capacity because they are only utilizing their existing staffs. They needed finances for them to take ad hoc staffs that will have to take these things for it to be devolved to the wards and subsequently to the units. Their budget is coming up, and he has said that as part of his agenda, between now and 2019, with good finances and with good support from the Senate and the National Assembly, they will ensure that it's going to be a continuous, daily based registration. But right now they are constrained because of paucity of funds, because of staff and other things. That's the only information I want to pass on, sir.
Thank you very much, Senator Wakil. I'm sure the chairman of INEC, Senate Chairman INEC, will take note of your observations and the prayers that we have moved here and see that this exercise is improved upon. Thank you, Minority Leader, for that motion. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the second order of the day is a motion standing in the name of Senator Francis Ali Mekena and Senator Bala Ibn Nalla on the Trans-Sahara Europe migration crisis. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Francis Ali Mekena to move the motion.
Senator Francis Ali Mekena.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Francis Ali Mekena, representing the good people of Edo North. Mr. President, I thank you for giving me the opportunity to move this motion, which is co-sponsored by my colleague and a friend, Senator Iba Nala Kebbi South. Mr. President, the Senate knows the definition of a migrant under the United Nations Organization for Migration as any person who is moving or has moved across any international border or within a state away from his or her habitual place of residence, regardless of the person's legal status, whether movement was voluntary or involuntary, what the causes of the movement are, and the length of stay. Mr. President, the Senate knows the negative trend towards this migration by Nigerians and other Africa through illegal routes across the Sahara Desert and the Mediterranean Sea, which has resulted in the colossal loss of life. The Senate is aware that the Nigerians who embark on irregular migration find their route through Libya, Morocco, and Algeria. The Senate is also worried that the International Organization for Migration Report 2016 revealed that about 5,070 people were estimated to have lost their lives on migratory routes around the world, and the Mediterranean alone witnessed a record of 3,817, out of which 2,000 of the casualties were from the Central Mediterranean route used by the West and North Africa countries, and Nigeria alone has more than 1,000 of the Central Mediterranean casualties. The Senate is more worried that because of the involvement of many Nigerians in irregular migration, the International Organization for Migration made Nigeria and Iraq a case study in one of their researches, the result of which was mind-boggling, and in addition to the tragic loss of life, a substantial number of victims are not recovered, and even those recovered are buried with, at best, a number and not a name. It is important to emphasize here that each unidentified migrant represents a missing person for a family who live in a perpetual grief without certainty of the whereabouts of their loved ones. Mr. President, the Senate is worried that the phenomenon is aggravated by the activities of unrepentant human traffickers who deceive unsuspecting Nigerians with promises of leading them to a greener pastures, only to sell them as sex slaves, and where possible, even harvest their body organs for money. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, if this ugly trend is not checked, it will lead to slave trade in this 21st century. The Senate is determined to reverse this negative trend and the human treatment suffered by Nigerian migrants in the House of Immigration Officials in the neighboring country, and accordingly resolve, 1, to set up ad hoc committee to investigate the causes and provide solutions to the problems of irregular migration across Sahara Mediterranean Sea to Europe, and 2, or the federal government to strengthen the National Agency for Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, NAPIT, and the Nigerian Immigration Service to take effective measures toward preventing the trafficking in persons and irregular migration. Mr. President, I so move. Thank you.
Deputy Senate President.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second this very important motion. Mr. President, this motion actually speaks to the harsh economic conditions in Africa, not just Nigeria. Because these migrants are not just Nigerians, there are peoples spread all across Africa who are looking for greener pastures in Europe, Asia, and America. Unfortunately, there's no green pasture anywhere. But what's going to happen is that a bunch of cabals take advantage of these harsh economic conditions and promise El Dorado to the unsuspecting youths of this country and other countries of Africa. They take money from them and put them through the harsh journey across this desert, through the seas, and then some of them die in the process. And if you make it eventually to Europe, we discover there's no job anywhere, and coming back becomes very difficult. So we must use this platform to let our youths know that there's no job available in Europe for them, so that there's nothing to aspire to. We believe that their future lies in this continent. Their hope lies in this continent. But as leaders, we owe them the responsibility to provide for them, not only for today, but also for tomorrow. How do we do this? I believe that it's our responsibility to be creative enough to provide job opportunities for our people. We have to go into industrialization. Emphasis is being placed today on agriculture. Yes, agriculture is good. But commercial agriculture has made it possible for a few people to feed a nation. And so that cannot take care of all the youths that are unemployed. So I believe, like Asia, the hope lies in the industrialization. We must make conscious efforts, together with the private sector, to provide factories, industries all over Nigeria and the rest of Africa, so that this will help to create jobs. We also need to put emphasis on ICT. There are creativity in ICT that can take care of so many people. And if we do this, I'm sure that jobs will be created. So it is our responsibility to discourage our people from taking this risk of trying to migrate to Europe. I've said before that one of our greatest resources as a nation is our young people. And so we must do everything possible to keep them within so we can take advantage of their potentials. So I support this motion, and I believe that this is serious enough for us to do something to ensure that this trend is reversed. So I commend the movers of this motion, and I support it, and I urge the rest of our colleagues to support this motion.
Senator Shusani.
Mr. President, I stand as Comrade Senator Sheikh Husani to add my voice to this very important motion. Trans-Sahara Europe migration crisis is a reality that has affected nations in the West African sub-region and in the East African sub-region. Irregular migration is about human trafficking, it's about terrorism, it's also about drug trafficking. According to statistics from International Organization for Migration, over 4,500 Africans drowned in the sea, Mediterranean Sea, in their attempts to cross over to Europe. Now, this is alarming. It is a moral duty for us as a nation and also as a parliament to intervene, to see that our young ones don't stop crossing the Sahara to Libya, to Algeria, in an attempt to reach to Lampedusa in Italy. Mr. President, it is of note that just last week, about 40 West Africans, mainly from Ghana and Nigeria, perished along the Sahara. And we can't fold our arms to this. The solutions to problems like this has to do with institutional framework and multinational joint task forces. But I believe that a motion like this will bring to spotlight the plight of young people in search of greener pastures who will leave the shores of their country in an attempt to cross over to Europe. I so support this very motion, and I believe it should be a springboard to addressing this problem. Thank you.
Distinguished colleagues, we'll go straight to the prayer. Prayer 1, set up ad hoc committee to investigate the causes and provide solution to the problems of irregular migration across the Sahara Mediterranean Sea to Europe and Senator James Manja, you're raising your hand.
I don't think it's necessary to set up any ad hoc committee. I think there's a committee of the Senate that's supervising this.
Second, yes, Kabiru Gaya. So, prayer 1 will read up the Standing Committee on Foreign Affairs to investigate the causes and provide solutions to the Joint Committee of Foreign Affairs and Diaspora to investigate the causes and provide solutions to the problems of regular migration across Sahara Mediterranean Sea to Europe. Those in favor of prayer 1 as amended say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 2, urge the federal government to strengthen national agencies for the prohibition of trafficking in persons, NAPTIP, and the National Immigration Services to take effective measures towards preventing trafficking in persons and illegal migration. Those in favor of prayer 2 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Let me thank the mover of this very, very important motion. It is timely. We have, as I said, we have a moral duty. We must intervene and find a solution to prevent and stop this practice. I hope the two committees will be able to come for a way forward that we can need. I read just last week that we lost over 25,000, that's just Nigerians. And I believe that we must put an end to this. And every time you travel now to European countries and meet with the official, the governments, the major concern is this issue of migration. And I think that we should seize the opportunity to work on a multilateral, bilateral, to address solution to this. I hope that the committee will be able to come up with something that we can implement. Thank you. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very respected colleagues, the third order of the day is a motion standing in the name of Senator George Thompson Sekibo and two others on the urgent need for the completion of Bordeaux-Boni Road, linking the Nigeria liquefied natural gas complex. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator George Thompson Sekibo to move the motion.
Senator Johnson Sekibo.
Mr. Senate President, my distinguished colleagues, I am Senator George Thompson Sekibo. Mr. President, the motion on the urgent need for the completion of Bordeaux-Boni Road, linking the Nigerian liquefied natural gas complex to the mainland, is co-sponsored by my colleagues from Rivers State, Senator Sinakachuku Tango Idiozo, Senator Magnus Inge Abi. Mr. President, I move the motion. The Senate is aware that the 37-kilometer Bordeaux-Boni Road project in Rivers State, linking Bordeaux community in Gogona local government area to Grand Boni in Boni local government, that owns the Nigerian liquefied natural gas complex, was awarded in the year 2002 by the President Olusegun Obasanjo's administration at a contract value of 20 billion naira only. The Senate is aware also that President Obasanjo's administration did not do much on the project after mobilizing the contractor to site, as it was poorly funded and later became abandoned till 2014. It recalls that in 2014, with passionate effort from the people of Boni Kingdom and other prominent Rivers elders,
the former President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan administration re-awarded the road project after revalidation at the contract value of 120 billion naira only for it only, and appropriated 20 billion naira for it in the 2015 budget to recommence its construction works. Regrets that the federal government did not spend any amount out of the appropriated amount in 2015, and the worst was that the project was not captured in 2016 budget, thus making obvious the lack of understanding of the importance of this road for national economic development. The Senate is aware that in 2017 budget, the federal government has proposed to spend a meager 9 billion naira only, which is not adequate to mobilize the contractors to site. Regrets that this is the same attitude of past administrations that eventually caused the abandonment of this project for this long. Acknowledge that in 2016, the governor of Rivers, the chief Barrister from Mr. Wanwike, approached the Nigerian Liquefied Natural Gas Management and appealed to the corporation to partner with the federal government to execute the project, as it would benefit both the federal government, the NNLG business empire, the people of Bonny, other communities along the road, and indeed the business community in the country. Because acknowledging the importance of the road and the urgent need for its completion, the Nigerian Liquefied Natural Gas Company management accepted to contribute a whooping sum of 50% of the contract value, which is equivalent to contract value of 120 billion naira. That is, they are to make a contribution of 60 billion naira only. Regrets that the federal government, which has a major business concern worth over 13 billion US dollars at Bonny, and who will benefit more from the completion of the project, has not taken the needed steps to actualize the commencement of the project, when even over 50% of the cost will be defrayed through partnership with the management of the NNLG. Because that at the inception of the present administration, when funds were extremely scarce to kickstart the new administration, it was the dividend of over 11 billion USD from the LNG that enabled the federal government to commence the administration effectively. Also recalls that outside the dividend that accrued to the federal government at the appropriate times, the 3 tiers of government have been receiving between $500 and $1 billion from the LNG annually in form of taxes. Believes that the completion of the road project will enhance the status of the Nigerian Liquefied Natural Gas Corporation and attract more revenue to the government, improve the business environment, and assist in uplifting the standard of living for the indigenes who have accepted to peacefully host this gigantic liquefied natural gas processing facility. Regrets that the federal government, which makes over 1.5 billion USD annually from the LNG, from both taxes and dividends, could abandon such an important road, linking their investment side to other parts of the country. Mr. President, before I go to the prayer, I just want to make a 2-sentence synopsis. We are aware that there is 9 billion naira in the budget. This road has been abandoned for about 14 years. And we are aware that in other budgets, not in this Senate, not in this term, sometimes they do some paltry sum of 5 billion or 7 billion, as the case may be, but they were not spent. And now we also have some money. But now we have an advantage. The advantage is that the LNG has accepted to put 50%, take care of 50% of the cost of the project. I think what we need actually now is a political will on the part of the federal government and part of the Ministry of Works to conclude such arrangement with the LNG, so that when they bring out whatever they have in their 9 billion, LNG will be bringing out also their fund. It will be a counterpart funding arrangement. We want, what the prayer is that they should be able to take the appropriate steps and make sure that such MOUs and agreements are properly concluded before we go into the serious rainy season. So the Senate accordingly resolved to invite the Minister of Works to brief the Senate Committee on Works on all circumstances surrounding the federal government's inability to partner with the LNG management to complete the Bonny Road project or any other issue that has stood against the completion of the Bonny Road within 2 weeks. Direct the Committee on Works, on the Senate Committee on Works, to carry out an independent comprehensive evaluation of the Bodo Bonu Road project and brief the Senate within 4 weeks. Mr. President, I so move.
Senator James Manager.
Thank you, Mr. President. My highly respected colleagues, James Manager, CON Delta South. Mr. President, I rise to second this motion, very important motion, and to urge my colleagues to support it. Mr. President, this is not a controversial motion at all. And I'm happy to note that the Rivers Caucus here in the Senate, united through Senator Sekebo, as reflected in the order in the motion, across party lines. I am happy. I only hope and pray that this could be replicated right inside Rivers State so that we will have peace in Rivers. Political peace in Rivers. Lovely. It's lovely, Mr. President. Very true. Mr. President, I think as explained by Senator Sekebo on the body of the motion, what is important is for a political will, somebody, an organ to coordinate this very important road project, particularly when the LNG has also pledged to pay 50% of the cost. That is a very welcome development. And the other side, I think there is 9 billion naira already in the budget for 2017. And so what is important is for the Committee of Works to do the necessary coordination under Gaya. I'm sure it's a very competent personality for this very important commercial road to come to fruition. Because the amount that is there, what we stand to benefit as a nation from the construction of that road, I think if there's any road that must be constructed at all, that road must be number one in my humble view. And therefore, Mr. President, I support this motion and I second it accordingly.
Distinguished colleagues, I think before I just take contribution, let me, as a point of information, also add my voice that I can confirm that I remember when the LNG paid me a courtesy call, they did emphasize this point that they're ready to finance 50% of this. So I think it would be useful for us to hear from Senator Kabiru Gaya, because I think, as you rightly said, the political will of doing it is really what we need now. Senator Kabiru Gaya.
Thank you, Your Excellency, the President of the Senate, my distinguished colleagues. I commend Senator Skibo and 2 other senators showing the Rivers State united on this motion. Let me clearly say that, Mr. President, this government of President Muhammadu Buhari is totally committed to this project. For the government to put 9 billion on a 35-kilometer road, it shows there is commitment by that government. And it's very important to have this road because of the access between the liquefied gas station and the neighboring environment. So therefore, this money, we have put 9 billion naira in the budget for this project, and it's enough to take off the project. And while the gas company have agreed to put the amount to pay. So therefore, the project will take off, and they're preparing to get for the proper necessary things on the project. So definitely, this project is taken off. Let me assure the Rivers State all the bottlenecks have virtually been removed, and the project will start very soon, sir. Thank you, sir.
Senator Magnus Abi.
Thank you, Mr. President. And let me also thank the chairman of the Senate Committee on Works for his explanations. Mr. President, this particular project is not a project for Rivers State, neither is it a project for the South-South. It is a project for all Nigerians, because every Nigerian stands to benefit from this project. Mr. President, you will recall that dividends from Bonny LNG paid to the federal government over the years have been in the billions. It has been very difficult for Bonny LNG to operate at maximum capacity and maximum profit because of the cost of transporting every single item by sea and by air. Because of the insecurity in the area, most of the staff have to be airlifted at every point, every day. And all that has created great costs, inconvenience, and challenges for the successful operation of the company. Mr. President, as we speak, they are about to start another train of the Bonny LNG. And the absence of this road will only escalate that cost, which will in turn reduce the amount of dividends that will be payable to the Nigerian government and the amount of money that will be shared to all the states and local governments of Nigeria. Therefore, investing in this project is a top priority for the entire economy of this country. Let me also add, Mr. President, that I am aware that the Federal Minister for Works has been to the site of this project more than twice to show the level of commitment that the federal government has to this project, and the President himself had directed that work on the project must start this year. It is, however, important that the Senate Committee on Works should join us to monitor what is going on there so that the entire effort that has been made to see that this project is not wasted. I want to commend my brothers who have come together to show that this project cuts across party lines and heals every divide that is necessary to make Nigeria to move forward. I believe, sir, that if we can also do that in the area of the insecurity that is presently plaguing our state, where people are being beheaded left and right, we will be able to make substantial progress as far as Rivers State is concerned. I want to once again thank my brothers and thank the entire Senate for the support that is being given to this motion so that Nigeria can benefit from this project. Thank you very much.
No, before prayers, Senator Chukwudezu, no, what do you think?
Thank you, Mr. Senate President and my fellow colleagues. Let me start by thanking the mover of this motion for thinking it necessary to bring this to the national front line. I want to commend President Olusegun Obasanjo for initiating this project at all. Because without that process, we won't be talking of this motion today. Subsequently, our brother, President Goodluck Jonathan, based on the demands and the pressures of our people, was able to review it to make it more pragmatic. And today, we are talking of Mr. Project, who is our governor, who had gone ahead to discuss with LLNG to get that understanding of a 50% sponsorship by LNG. All these people have played their role. It is now left for us, and thank God you have also asked the Chairman Works of this Senate to speak on this matter. What it shows is that this project is very important to Nigeria and to this Senate. We are not going to do any harm to the Nigerian state if this project is undertaken. I know it would enhance the relationship between the host community and LNG, which is what we want. We have been thinking about militancy and all that in Niger Delta, but Bonny as a community had hosted LNG since the 1990s and had no crisis with them. The only thing we can do is to help these people overcome their obstacles, which is transportation. Right now, the only way you can get to Bonny is by boat. If they can feel the presence of LNG by having a road, which LNG is also putting its name to it by paying 50% of the cost, then I think everybody will be better off for it. I commend the Senate for taking this motion as its motion, as it is. Because as the chairman hasn't spoken, it shows that the Senate is already doing something about it. And I pray that the members, when the questions are put, look at it in positive light. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, the prayers are straight. Let's go straight to prayers. One, invite the Minister of Power, Works and Housing to brief the Senate Committee on Works on the circumstances surrounding the federal government's inability to partner with LNG management to complete the Bodo-Boni Road project or any other issue that has stood against the completion of the Bodo-Boni Road within 2 weeks. Those in favor of prayer 1 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 2, direct the Committee on Works to carry out an independent comprehensive evaluation of the Bodo-Boni Road project and brief Senate within 4 weeks. Those in favor of prayer 2 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Sekibu and the other 2 senators who have co-sponsored this motion. This is a very, very important motion, and we must see through it and see to its completion and see for the project to take off. This is a project that, rightly said, will improve host community relationship. It's another example of public sector, private sector partnership, and it just needs the political will to do it. And I think that we're best positioned to make this happen. So, Chairman Works, please take this as a priority. I believe that we should make sure that this road does take off, and for the good of not only people of Bonny, River State, Nigeria at all. Thank you. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the fourth order of the day is a motion standing in the name of Senator Tijani Kaura on the urgent need for the Senate to look into the recurring shortfall in allocation for personnel costs in tertiary institutions in Nigeria. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Tijani Kaura to move the motion.
Senator Tijani Kaura.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Tijani Kaura, Zamfara North. Mr. President, I rise to move this motion, an urgent need for the Senate to look into the recurring shortfall in allocation of personnel costs in tertiary institutions in Nigeria. Mr. President, before I move my motion, I want to make some clarifications. This motion would have come earlier than now at the process of budget making some few weeks ago. But for reasons of queue and exigencies of a number of these motions in the hallowed chamber, it could not be heard at that time until today. I must, however, thank the Chairman of Rules and Business for finally putting my motion today. Mr. President, the Senate aware that the provision for personnel costs for the federal government-owned tertiary institutions in 2017 appropriation bill is the same with the 2016 budgetary allocation in terms of shortfall. Disturbed about the deliberate reduction of budgetary allocation for personnel in all federal tertiary institutions in Nigeria, thereby dampening the morale of administrators, academic and non-academic staff nationwide, and threatening the fragile industrial peace in our tertiary institution campuses. Worried that this unhealthy practice has continued to force administrators in tertiary institutions in Nigeria to pay salaries, in some cases half salaries, largely with internally generated revenue, which often is not enough. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, further worried that the reduction in the allocation for personnel costs has led to a situation where staff union deductions, payee deductions, and the National Housing Fund deductions are usually paid in arrears. The situation affects the ability of tertiary institutions to implement promotions which are in very many cases long overdue. Also informed that the presidential initiative on continuous audit have visited most of the federal-owned institutions and verified their nominal roles without corresponding action. Further informed that consequent upon this development, industrial action now looms across tertiary.
Point of order, Senator Benga Shafa.
Mr. President, Senator Benga Ashafa, representing Lagos Senatorial District, I stand on order 56, 5, and 9. May I read, sir?
Go ahead and read.
Order 56, 5 says, Senators shall not cross the floor of the Senate unnecessarily, nor sit in a place allotted to any other senator. I can see so many of my colleagues seated in different seats, particularly on the other side. And 9, when thank you, sir. And 9, when a senator is speaking, no senator may converse aloud or make any noise or disturbance to interrupt him. There are so many pockets of discussions all around.
When the order is sustained, distinguished colleagues, can you please let us comply with these books, the rule books that we all abide and swear by to go with? Please let us keep the noise down and respectful for our colleagues as they contribute. Senator Tijani Kara, continue.
Thank you, Mr. President. Further informed that consequent upon these developments, industrial action now looms across our tertiary institutions. Convinced that necessary measures must be taken to address the issues so as to provide more conducive atmosphere for teaching and learning in our tertiary institutions, thereby boosting the quality of our educational system. Mr. President, I am aware today in my state there is a Federal College of Education, Gusau Technical. For the last 5 months, only half salary is being paid to both academic and non-academic staff. And I'm sure similar situations obtain in several tertiary institutions. And I think it is now time for this Silent Chamber to take decision to bring this to a total stop. Accordingly, Mr. President, the Senate resolves urge the federal government to, as a matter of urgency, propose a supplementary budget to bridge the gap in the personal allocation of federal government-owned tertiary institutions since the 2017 budget is almost concluded. That is why I explained that this motion would have come earlier than now. Secondly, urge the ministries of Budget, Finance and Education to take steps to correct the anomalies in the subsequent appropriation bills. I so move, Mr. President. Thank you.
Yes, Senator Jibril Barham.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Barrow Jibrin. I represent Kano North. Mr. President, one of the essentials for having a good society, a sound country, is having an educated populace. And Mr. President, in order to have that, we need, and it's really necessary and a must, to make sure that those who are to provide that needed education to the populace are well catered for. That is, our teachers, particularly in tertiary institutions and other institutions of learning in the country, must, as a matter of importance, be taken care of by way of paying their salary allowances as at when due. But Mr. President, what we are seeing in this country is a trend, a worrisome trend, where these teachers, these lecturers, and other workers in our tertiary institutions are not paid their salary allowances promptly. And obviously, this is capable of impacting on their performances by way of not really doing or performing their job in the manner that is desired of them. And this trend must stop. A situation where inadequate provisions are made for the payment of salary and allowances of teachers and institutions is really worrisome. It is known to the appropriate authorities. They all know what these institutions need to pay their allowances and salary and allowances of their teachers, of the other lecturers and workers, but still, the amounts being provided are quite inadequate. We need to do something, and we need to call the attention of Minister of Finance and Budget Office to stop this ugly trend. Having said so, Mr. President, I know all over the world, there is no institution that government can fully take care of its needs. We have been telling these universities that they need to look inwards to find ways of generating funds themselves. We know that there are means of generating funds, money, revenue by these institutions through means like endowment funds, setting endowment funds to be able to make money outside what is given to them by government. They can also sell their patents from, their research, their research findings, and also commercializing their research findings in order to make money. This is the trend all over the world. That's why you have institutions like Yale University, Oxford University, even in Africa here, you have universities in South Africa that have fat balance sheets through monies they make through their through ventures set up by them to really complement what government is given to them. So for this reason, it's important that we draw the attention of our institutions to really look inwards in making sure that they make money themselves rather than completely relying on government. Well, we know the government has to do its own bit. It has to do what it needs to do. But still, they need to find ways to complement what government is doing. I so submit, Mr. President. Thank you.
Senator John Eno.
Mr. President, my name is John Owen, Eno, Cross River Central. Mr. President, I speak in support of this motion. Unarguably, I think there is a lot wrong. There's a lot to affect motivation of staff who are not being able to pay salaries because of a certain salary shortfall. And I think, just like the mover had indicated, this motion would have been more useful if it had come up for debate before the 2017 budget was passed. But having said so, I think that it's also still important that our attention is called to this subject matter. My only concern, really, with this motion is that if you look at the personnel cost of our national budget, it's getting to about 2.5 trillion in personnel alone. I mean, if we have any challenge with our budgeting in terms of trying to bridge the gap between the recurrent budget and the capital budget, the personnel component is what has remained a challenge. And I think it just continues to rise and rise. Some years back, overhead budget was also a challenge, but I think that we've been able to put that under control. Now, we also need to be able to reconcile. Almost every year, we get figures of how much government is saving as a result of the application of the IPs, system in various MDAs of government. We also need to be able to know whether, in addition to what is being told us, whether IPs has been extended to our tertiary institutions. And if it has, why does this remain a problem? There is also a fact that agencies of government even get into lobbying the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation for them not to be brought into IPs yet. What it means, therefore, is that there is something to be gained, there's something to be benefited by these agencies when they are not in order to come under the IPs platform. And I think that this is the only way that we can actually bring this under control and under proper monitoring. I think that, having said so, there's also something basically wrong with having a certain personnel figure for 2016, which was appreciated to be a shortfall. and having that same figure restated in 2017, I think there is a lot therefore wrong with the kind of budgeting that we have. And I think that going thus far, it's important that ahead of the 2018 budget, that the Office of the Accountant General properly presents a status report of all the agencies that have become IPs compliant. Because year in, year out, there is budgetary allocation that is given to that office for the continuous implementation of IPs. Because very early, IPs was appreciated to be the only system that can get us to achieve this. Because a lot of agencies of government, not just the university system, they keep increasing their overheads and their personnel. They keep recruiting, even when they're not supposed to recruit. So you can't keep having this uncontrollably without having an implication in terms of the adequacy of funds for personnel, when government has to balance out between what it can actually do in terms of development and infrastructure and in terms of payment of salaries. Because government cannot devote all its monies to the payment of salaries. So we need to be able to achieve this when a certain figure is realized and is accepted. There is no how, it's irresponsible on the part of government to do budgeting and deliberately under budget for personnel. But I think that everybody needs to come clean on this, and it's only to that extent that we can continue to avoid these kinds of problems. Thank you.
Senator Rozoko.
Thank you, Mr. President, for giving me the floor. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Rose Oko. I represent I represent Cross River North in Cross River State. Mr. President, I totally support this motion, and I commend the mover of the motion for bringing this matter to the fore. Mr. President, the issue of shortfall in provisions for personnel costs in educational institutions across the country has been recurring for some years now. Mr. President, we are all aware that the education sector is beset with many problems, ranging from lack of infrastructure to poor infrastructure, decaying infrastructure, and teaching and teacher quality in our institutions. To add to it the issue of epileptic payment of personnel, Mr. President, worsens the situation. Mr. President, this matter is not restricted only to tertiary institutions. It's also down to federal government-owned colleges. Indeed, a good case in point is that of King's College, when last year, out of a budget of 337 million, only 37 million was provided in the budget. And again this year, of a budget of 340 million, only 160 million was provided. We are bringing that up in the supplementary appropriation. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, we will urge the office, the budget office, to please not to oversight in personnel costs in an area that reacts violently and is violent in its reaction to issues that concern them, like the universities. Mr. President, while universities even have some level of IGR, secondary schools do not have any IGR to talk of. And so for a school like King's College or any other federal government college for that matter to have a shortfall in its personnel costs is indeed very grave and grievous. Mr. President, to that extent, I would like to suggest that when these budgets come up to us in the National Assembly, if there is sufficient cost to show that indeed these monies are needed, when we notice these shortfalls, we should take steps to correct them before the budgets are finally signed into law. And I will also subscribe to the comments made by Senator John in terms of ensuring that all of them are brought into IPs. Thank you very much.
Last contributor for Star Gala.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I'm First Ogola. I represent Bayelsa West. The issue of shortfall in personnel costs is an embarrassment to Nigeria and Nigerians. When the Federal University of Turkey were complaining of shortfall in salary remittances to them, and the Federal University of Petroleum Efun were also complaining of this shortfall, it was like an isolated case. You need personnel costs, you need overhead charges, you need capital costs to run universities. If the federal government is unable to fund personnel, which is the basic and minimal cost, even if development-wise the universities are stagnating, then it calls to question our ability to carry on with the federal university system. And when the government is unable to do that, then it calls for privatization of these universities. Let people who have the money fund these universities. But I pray my distinguished colleagues and the President of the Senate that we need to conduct clear personnel audits. And I'm happy there is a tertiary education committee of the Senate who can conduct that personnel audit. And so they can. And that if they are mandated, they can do that. So I've come to the prayers for additional prayer for the tertiary education committee of the Senate to be directed to ensure that we can solve this problem once and for all. Because the issue of they are ascertaining the shortfall, we are just prepared budget, and if there is a shortfall, we need to verify that through the appropriate committee to ensure that this matter can be solved once and for all. And therefore, I'm urging my distinguished colleagues and the President of the Senate to support the additional prayer I'll bring up on this matter. God bless you.
Distinguished colleagues, go to prayer. Prayer 1, urge the federal government to, as a matter of urgency, propose a supplementary budget to bridge the gap in personnel allocation of federal government-owned tertiary institutions since the 2017 budget is almost concluded. You want to step down this prayer? Yes? All right. Those in favor of that student, just prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 2, urge the ministries of budget, finance, and education to take steps to correct these anomalies in subsequent appropriation bills. Those in favor of prayer 2 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Additional prayer. Yes, Senator Foster Ogala. Can you repeat the prayer?
Direct the Tertiary Education Committee of the Senate to conduct a personnel and emolument audit to ensure that they verify the correct shortfall and report back to the Senate for appropriate resolution.
Any seconder? Any other prayer? Sir John Eno.
Mr. President, John Owaneno, Cross River Central. My additional prayer is call on the office of the Accountant General of the Federation to provide a status report of all IPs compliant MDAs to the National Assembly ahead of the 2018 budget. Yes.
Call on the Office of the Accountant General to provide the IP status of what?
Yes.
Of all agencies, all MDAs.
Ahead of the 2018 budget.
Any seconder? Senator Dino Milai.
Mr. President, my dear colleagues, Dino Milai, I rise to second this very important prayer as moved by Senator John Owaneno. I so second.
I put prayer, additional prayer. Yes. Senator Tijani Kara.
Mr. President, this prayer does not in any way involve tertiary institutions. That is the main issue we are discussing today. And I think there is need for you to repress so that it will involve this institution.
Distinguished colleagues, there is an additional prayer which reads, call on the Office of the Accountant General to provide the IP status of all MDAs and before the 2018 budget. Those in favor of this additional prayer say aye. Those against say nay. Nays have it. Any other additional prayer? Senator Magnus Abe.
Mr. President, my distinguished and eminent colleagues, I believe that having viewed this matter, we should take action on the matter, and we should direct our committee on tertiary education and TED fund to investigate the circumstances regarding this issue and report back to the Senate within 6 weeks.
Observation, sir.
Is anybody seconding this, Senator Tinubu?
Mr. President, I second the prayer ably moved by my distinguished colleague.
What is the prayer?
To mandate the Committee of Tertiary and Theft Fund to look into the matter, wholesome, investigation, and report back to the Senate in 6 weeks.
We pass. We have passed. Those in favor of the additional prayer to call on the Tertiary Education Committee to investigate the circumstances surrounding the issue and report back in 6 weeks. Those in favor of this additional prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Foster, you've been observing. Okay, what are you observing?
This last motion, it has been overtaken by them because my motion was not allowed to be seconded, and it escaped the observation of the President of the Senate to allow the seconder. But now that the present one has been seconded, I step down my case.
Thank you very much. I thank you. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, relying on our standing order 1B, I want to move that we arrange the order in which the reports have been reported here in the order paper. And I would suggest that we start with the report of the Committee on Foreign Affairs and subsequently report on Committee on Trade and Investment, and then Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters. I will therefore move Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the seventh order of the day is now the fifth order of the day and is the presentation and consideration of the report of the Committee on Foreign Affairs on the screening of the following persons as non-career ambassadors of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The names are: number one, Justice Silvanus Adewere Nsofo Imo, resubmission. Number two, Joseph Olushola E.G. Ondo, replacement. Number three, Commodore Yusuf John Gahina, retired, Gombe, replacement. The single senators will report that the report of the committee was laid yesterday, Tuesday, 5th June 2017. Mr. President, you may wish to invite very distinguished Senator Mansurat Sumonu, chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the presentation and consideration of the report.
Senator Sumonu.
Mr. President, my name is Senator Mansurat Sumonu. I hereby rise to move a motion that the Senate should consider the nomination of the three ambassadors that has been screened. Thank you.
Senator Lejani.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Joshua Lidani, representing from the South. I rise to second the motion that the Senate do consider the report of the Committee on Foreign Affairs on the screening of 3 non-career ambassadorial nominees. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the Senate do consider the report of the Committee on Foreign Affairs on screening of the following persons as non-career ambassadors of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Justice Osofo, Joseph Nji, and Commander Hina. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Sumonu, please present your report.
Thank you very much again. My name is Senator Monsura Sumonu, representing Oyo Central Senatorial District. Report on the screening of 3 non-career ambassadorial nominees. We have all our members. Introduction. On Thursday, 16th March 2016, Senate Committee on Foreign Affairs presented its recommendation to the Senate of the 47 non-career ambassadorial nominees. Then you now go to page 2. On Tuesday, 16th of May 2016, the committee screened the following 3 ambassadorial nominees: Justice Osofo, Joseph Olusholaiji, Commodore Yusuf Haina. Then you can go to page 4, the confirmation. I would like to read that of Justice Osofo because he was rejected in the first time, and the presidency has sent it back for us to reconsider him. Honorable Justice Osofo is 82 years, non-career ambassadorial nominee from Imo State. Hold on. He's married with 3 children. I'll go to E. As opposed to being sarcastic and afraid when he first appeared before this committee for screening, the nominees answered all questions appropriately, and his appearance was far better than the previous one. The DSS report still maintained that he would not be able to perform the duty of ambassador due to his advanced age. However, the committee believed that he should not be penalized based on age, since he was able to demonstrate satisfactory skills during the exercise. For that, the DSS report did not state any criminal act against the nominee. Hence, the committee resolved to give him a chance to serve his fatherland as ambassador owing to his antecedents. Accordingly, the committee is satisfied with his second appearance and performance, as well as assured by his ability to function as ambassador of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The committee hereby recommends Honorable Justice Sylvanus Osofo retired to the Senate for confirmation. And why? And to Barrister Joseph Olusholaiji, the nominee is widely traveled and has navigated very well in partisan politics, trade union activities, academia, and private practice. He responded adequately. He responded adequately to all issues raised during the screening exercise. The nominee displayed calmness and confidence to the satisfaction of the committee. So we hereby recommend it. Then the last one, page 7. Commodore Yusuf Haina. He was very frank and elaborately responded to questions during the screening exercise. He viewed a subjective classification of some countries as potentially dangerous by some superpowers, which in his opinion is a matter of political definition that suit those countries' national interests. He added that the subject matter varied from nation to nation and should be treated in isolation, not general. He exhibited essential qualities required from an ambassador. The committee hereby recommends him. And the prayer that the Senate do confirm the nomination of the three ambassadorial nominees for confirmation of their appointment as ambassadors of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Justice Nsofo, Joseph E.G., Commodore Ina. In conclusion, 3 non-career nominees were presented to the Senate and referred to this committee for detailed screening. The screening has been completed with all the 3 nominees cleared and recommended to the Senate for confirmation of their appointments as ambassadors of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The committee most sincerely thanks the President of the Senate and the entire Senate for the opportunity to serve. We also appreciate the entire members of the Senate Committee on Foreign Affairs and the Secretariat staff for the exemplary commitment displayed during the exercise. The committee so submits. Thank you.
Leader, can we motion? If there are no questions, we move to committee of the whole to consider. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, I move that the Senate resolves into committee of the whole to consider the report.
Mr. President, I rise to second the motion as moved by the leader. Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that will resolve to committee will consider the report, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, any contribution that will go straight and I'll put the question, there are no contributions. Okay, distinguished colleagues, Mr. President, distinguished colleague, will the Senate approve the nomination of Justice Nsofo, retired, as non-career ambassador of the Federal Republic of Nigeria? Let's move. We have so many things ahead of us today. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Justice Severus Nsofo as non-career ambassador of the Federal Republic of Nigeria? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, will the Senate approve the nomination of Joseph Olushola Nji as non-career ambassador of the Federal Republic of Nigeria? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Commander Yusuf Juan Ina, retired, as non-career ambassador of the Federal Republic of Nigeria? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, Mr. Chairman, very distinguished colleagues, I move that the Senate reverse to plenary for the charge report progress.
Mr. Chairman, distinguished colleagues, I rise to support the motion as moved by the leader that the Senate reverse the plenary so that the chairman can report progress. I so second.
Those in favor that back to plenary report progress say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, the Senate in the Committee of the Whole considered the report of the Committee on Foreign Affairs on the screening of Mr. President's nominees for appointment as non-career ambassadors of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and approved the nominations of Justice Severus Nsofo Imori submission, Joseph Olushola Nji Ondo replacement, Commodore Yusuf Jonga in a retired Gombe replacement as non-career ambassadors of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? The Secretary with the Senate confirm the nomination of Justice Nsofo as non-career ambassador for the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Joseph Nsofo is hereby confirmed as non-career ambassador of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Joseph Olushola Nji as non-career ambassador of the Federal Republic of Nigeria? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Joseph Olushola Nji is hereby confirmed as non-career ambassador of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Commodore Yusuf Jonga as non-career ambassador of the Federal Republic of Nigeria? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Commander Yusuf Jonga is hereby confirmed as non-career ambassador of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. On behalf of this respectable Senate, let me congratulate the three ambassadorial nominees and wish them a very useful, successful, healthy tenure. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, Relying on order 1B again, I want to move that we step down consideration of the remaining reports and then the bills for concurrence, and we'll go to consideration of bills.
Let's go there.
Yeah, you are supposed to second.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion moved by the leader that we set down the other items and move straight into the bills. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that we step down the consideration of reports and the bills for concurrence, those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the 15th order of the day is the second reading of the Central Bank of Nigeria Act Cap C4 LFM 2007, Amendment Bill 2017. The single senators will report that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Thursday, 8th October 2015. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Ross Oko to move the motion for the bill to be read a second time.
Senator Ross Oko.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Rose Oko, Cross River North. I rise to move that a bill for an act to amend the Central Bank of Nigeria CBN Act Cap C4 LFN 2007 to ensure transparency and accountability in the operations of the bank and subject its intervention fund advances to the approval of the National Assembly and for related matters, 2017 SB 64 for second reading. I so move. Do I go ahead, Mr. President?
Go ahead now.
Permit me, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, to lead the debate on the second reading of this bill. This bill seeks to institute transparency and accountability in the operations of the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, by ensuring that intervention advances receive the approval of the National Assembly, thereby bringing it in line with Section 80 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, and Sections 22 and 23 of the Fiscal Responsibility Act. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, direct control of national finance is one of the great tasks of modern legislatures. This control is exercised at two levels. First, through legislative assent to all measures that implement public policy, including the authorization of both the amount and objects or destination of all public expenditure. The second means is through review of annual reports on public accounts and the reports of the relevant parastatals, agencies or ministries. It is by doing so that the Parliament ensures that no expenditure is made other than those authorized by it, thereby checking the financial excesses of government establishments. In consonance with this global task, vested in the legislature by Convention and Customs, Section 21 of the Fiscal Responsibility Act mandates the Central Bank of Nigeria and other government corporations, agencies and government-owned companies to submit the scheduled estimates of their revenue and expenditure for every succeeding 3 years to the National Assembly through the Minister of Finance. The essence of these requirements, distinguished colleagues, is to instill fiscal discipline and ensure that relevant corporations, agencies, and government-owned companies spend only from appropriated revenue. Similarly, Section 83 and 4 of the 1999 Constitution as amended provide respectively that no money shall be withdrawn from any public fund of the Federation other than the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation unless the issue of those monies has been authorized by an act of the National Assembly. And no money shall be withdrawn from the Consolidated Revenue Fund or any other public fund of the Federation except in the manner prescribed by the National Assembly. However, the Central Bank has continually acted in contravention of these provisions of the Constitution and the Fiscal Responsibility Act through extra budgetary interventions to selected bodies, institutions, agencies, and state governments. For instance, some of these interventions include the 620 billion bailout funds to 5 banks, various donations to tertiary institutions running into several billions, the 300 billion bailout funds to states drawn from the $2.1 billion of NLNG's taxes and dividends to pay salaries, the 2.02 trillion naira said to have been set aside by the CBN to fund various sectors of the economy, namely the Commercial Agricultural Credit Scheme, 200 billion, Power and Aviation Intervention Funds, 300 billion, Micro, Small, Medium Enterprise Development Fund, 220 billion, Real Sector Support Facility, 300 billion, and Nigeria Electricity Market Stabilization Facility, 213 billion, totaling 1.22 trillion, amongst others. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the total capital budget for 2016 was 1.8 trillion naira. If 1.223 trillion was indeed disbursed or intended as intervention, then an amount almost the size of the capital budget was disbursed without appropriation and tracking to know the effectiveness of the intervention in the economy. In addition, the CBN was quoted to have said that in 2015, its intervention rose to 899 billion compared to 668 billion in 2014. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the CBN Act 2007, as amended, provides in Section 38 for the intervention of the bank to the tune of 5% of the actual revenue of the previous year to fund the nation's shortfall in the budget. While these interventions are expected to have economic benefits, notably strengthen the economy through stabilization process, income distribution, resource allocation, sectoral performance, and job creation, its procedural problems and its lack of appropriation and oversight exposes it to abuse, ineffective implementation, and imprudence in its implementation. The CBN neither seeks nor obtains the approval of the National Assembly in the intervention funds, as they are not captured in the Appropriation Act. There are therefore no known mechanisms for monitoring and tracking of the funds. Consequently, effective legislative oversight of such funds are not in existence. This situation gives room for abuse, financial recklessness, and financial imprudence, resulting in the lofty aims of the intervention remaining unrealized to a large extent. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, it should be noted that the central bank of many countries or its equivalents intervene in their economy, but with legislative approval. For example, Ghana, Liberia, Tanzania, Kenya, South Africa, and Uganda. In all these countries, similar interventions require direct legislative approval. In the United States of America, for instance, the Federal Reserve Bank appears before the Congress through its committees to provide oversight into monetary policy. Similarly, the Bank of England is accountable to the Parliament. This is done through its periodic appearance before the Treasury Committee of the House of Commons to give account of its performance. All key government expenditures of the US and British governments are sent to Parliament for approval. Indeed, the United States government's intervention in the auto industry and the housing sector in 2009 of about $700 billion received Congress approval. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the bill comprises of 3 sections, with the substantive amendments contained in Section 2. Subsection 1 of Section 2 of the bill expressly subjects all intervention advances from the CBN to the prior approval of the National Assembly. Subsection 2 mandates the CBN to forward or transmit any proposal for grants or advances to the National Assembly. Subsection 3 provides the time frame of 30 days within which the National Assembly shall determine the merits or otherwise of any proposal for intervention grants or advances. Subsection 4 further provides for a period of 5 days within which the National Assembly shall communicate its resolution to the CBN. Subsection 5 provides that the National Assembly shall not approve any advances if there is an outstanding sum that is unpaid by the proposed beneficiary on any earlier advance. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the benefits accrued from the CBN seeking legislative consideration and approval cannot be overemphasized. It is consistent with the 1999 Constitution and will ensure legislative oversight and ensure the checks and balances that are intended in Section 80 of the Constitution. In order to achieve the above, there is the need to amend the CBN Act 2007 to provide explicitly for laying of intervention funds before the National Assembly for appropriation to ensure transparency, accountability, and probity in the operations of the CBN and the NDAs in the management of intervention funds. I urge you all, distinguished colleagues, to support the second reading of this bill, a bill that seeks to bring the operations of the CBN in line with the 1999 Constitution and the Fiscal Responsibility Act, ensure tracking and prudence in the management of intervention advances with a view to maximize the benefits to the economy and nation of these funds. I thank you all for your attention.
Senator Gobri.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, distinguished colleagues. I rise to support this very important motion because currently the way it is, this very important bill. The issue is that it is only in Nigeria that you find our central bank is so independent that they can do anything without referral to anybody. And I think this is very retrogressive and it does not actually help us in moving forward, particularly when it comes to the question of economy. The point of question is the issue of AMCON. When AMCON was actually thought over, they established that AMCON so that they can be able to take the toxic assets of the banks. But today, what is happening is that those assets are running into trillions of naira, and that money is hooked there, and no payment is made, no any profit is made, and that is why we are running into some problems. So I think what is fundamental here is that whatever they want, they have to come to the National Assembly for approval. If they don't do that, certainly this should not be accepted. I think it's very important that we can do that. This is for checks and balances. And look at also what is happening in our monetary policy. Every now and then we are just guessing, let naira be this, let naira be this, exchange rate, naira to dollar. It's always guessed. And in that kind of situation, we're into some problem. The main issue here is nobody knows the kind of economic policies we are having today. Is it Maltonian? Is it Keynesian? Or is it Austrian policy? Nobody knows exactly. So the CBN is just guessing. So if there is this committee, we have this finance committee here, where they can come in and then discuss the issue and then agree on what to do. And then they will be given approval. I think this is better. So I support this one wholeheartedly, and I believe it's going to sanitize the operation of Central Bank. Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Distinguished colleagues, is anybody against this bill? Yes, so let me now put the question now. Those in favor that this bill be read the second time say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clap.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act
to amend the Central Bank of Nigeria Act, Cap C4, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 2007, to ensure transparency and accountability in the operations of the bank and subject its intervention advances to the approval of National Assembly and for related matters 2017, second reading.
A bill for an act to amend the Central Bank of Nigeria Act, Cap C4, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 2007, to ensure transparency and accountability in the operations of the bank and subjects its intervention advances to the approval of the National Assembly and for related matters 2017, second reading taken. This bill is referred to Committee on Banking and Insurance and other financial institutions. Report back in 4 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the 16th order of the day is the second reading of the National Directorate of Employment Act, Cap N28, LFN 2004, Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2017. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Wednesday, 9th December 2015. Mr. President, we wish to invite Senator Albert Bassi to move the motion for the bill to be read a second time.
Senator Bassi Albert Akpan.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished and respected colleagues, a bill for an act to repeal the National Directorate of Employment Act, Cap 28, Laws of Federation of Nigeria, 2004, and to establish the National Youth Employment and Development Agency Act 2017 to provide for the promotion, coordination, and employment of youth in Nigeria and for other matters connected therein. Mr. President, it is my pleasure to lead the debate on this all-important bill, Mr. President. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, permit me to lead the debate on the general principles of this important bill for an act to repeal the National Directorate of Employment Act, Cap 28, Laws of Federation of Nigeria, 2004, and in its place enact the National Youth Employment and Development Agency Act, Cap 2017. This bill was read for the first time in this hallowed chamber on December 2016. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, this bill primarily seeks to expand the scope of the existing National Directorate on Employment law to accommodate poverty eradication, creation of employment-related plans and programs of government, and incorporate issues of youth development and empowerment, and strengthen this operation for the optimum performance. The objective of this bill, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, are to generate employment and entrepreneurship and ensure greater opportunities for youth to secure decent work and income over the life cycle, thereby contributing to a virtuous cycle of poverty reduction, sustainable development, and social inclusion. To protect their rights and civic engagements by ensuring that the inherent rights of the youth are recognized and upheld, to enable the engagement of young people in all aspects of their development. To ensure the progressive and substantive inclusion of young people in political and decision-making process at local, state, and national level. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, the National Directorate of Employment, NDE, was created to combat unemployment in the country arising from the global economic recession in the 1980s. The Directorate carries out this mandate through various programs such as skills acquisition, self-employment schemes, and labor-intensive programs. However, much of these employment schemes by the Directorate are relevant and important. There is limit to which they can be relied upon in this 21st century to provide a lasting solutions to youth unemployment and development. This is because the NDA Act has become obsolete and is replete with deficiencies which have so far jeopardized or hampered its operations and execution of its mandate. Similarly, poor funding, since the Director relies mainly on annual subvention from the federal government for its sustenance. Low productivity and low morale of its employees have also hindered its performance in the past years. This is why the unemployment rate in Nigeria has not abated, but has been on a steady increase over the years, with the resultant high rate in social vices. Mr. President, my distinguished and respected colleagues, Nigeria's unemployment rate rose for the 7th
straight quarter to 13.9% pro rata in the third quarter of 2016 from 13.3% in the previous period. This is the highest level since 2009. Recent figures from the National Bureau of Statistics reveals that unemployment labor force now stands at 75.9 million Nigerians youths. This is a national calamity. The various intervention funds of over 2 trillion, as like earlier stated by Senator Rozoko, expended by the federal government in the past few years has had no commensurate impact in terms of job creation, as most of the funds were diverted to other uses due to lack of an enabling legislation. The multiplicity of entrepreneurship skills acquisition centers across the country without adequate funding and sustainability of programs has further deepened the unemployment crisis in Nigeria. Mr. President, my distinguished and respected colleagues, the extant NDE Act does not capture or address sufficiently the challenges or issues affecting youth development, empowerment, and employment, which has now taken a global dimension and has attracted resolutions by international organizations, for example, United Nations Women Programme, UNDP, Youth Strategy, and Commonwealth Plans of Action for Youth Empowerment, have all drawn up elaborate strategies to assist and empower the youth, while at the same time calling the attention of member nations to take concrete steps to address the problems of youth employment and empowerment for a sustainable and better future, of which this bill tends to achieve. Mr. President, my distinguished and respected colleagues, across the globe, and Nigeria in particular, the economic recession has had a dramatic impact on the challenges facing young people seeking jobs. Apart from the challenges in terms of access to equal opportunities to jobs, the youth also have challenges in having a voice on decisions that affect their lives as well as their future. Majority of our youth today are faced with the following problems: inadequate parental care, non-availability of suitable sports and recreational facilities, moral decadence in the society, religious fanaticism, cultism, political manipulation of youth organizations, unemployment and underemployment, poor education, breakdown of family values, militancy, kidnapping activities, etc. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, we are all aware that Nigeria is globally acknowledged to be the country of diverse opportunities. With a population of over 170 million people, it is supposed to be an entrepreneur's paradise. It is, however, a paradox that as an economic giant, Nigeria has instead created a hostile environment that is unfavorable for youth to achieve their entrepreneurial success in the midst of an array of entrepreneurial programs. Although government has tried to encourage entrepreneurship by implementing programs aimed at aiding young people create jobs for themselves or support their businesses, such programs have only assisted just a selected few in the past in comparison to the large population of Nigerians, and these programs are not sustainable enough to achieve its aim. Take, for instance, the UWIN, the National Master Plan for Encouraging Entrepreneurs, has celebrated only 1,200 awardees since its inception 3 years ago. The program stipulates 400 awardees per year, of which just a little percentage are below 30 years of age. There are around 80 million youths in Nigeria today, with about 80% of them unemployed. If the government carries on at this pace, it will probably solve the problem of unemployment in the next 50,000 years, assuming there are even 60 million unemployed youths in Nigeria. Mr. President, my distinguished and respected colleagues, it is in response to this national phenomenon of young people, of young men and women agitating for a meaningful civic, economic, social, and political participation that informed the imperative for this all-important legislation. The new bill identifies development challenges and issues confronting Nigerian youth today and offers forward-looking recommendations for strategic entry points and engagement of a broad spectrum of partners, including the young people themselves, in addressing youth employment and empowerment issues in Nigeria. The bill further takes cognizance of the National Youth Policy and Strategic Plan of Action of the federal government and other international conventions on youth employment and development. It also offers a systematic and sustainable actions to support the youth in the increasing complex development context for social, economic, and political transformation. This bill, when passed into law, will enhance all efforts of government and private sector to promote self-employment at the grassroots through sustainable facilitation of entrepreneurial skills.
funding of the agency. A critical and important aspect of the new bill is the establishment of a National Youth Development Fund to finance the execution of programs of the agency. The fund is to be managed by a board of trustees to be headed by the minister in charge of labor, employment and productivity with the oversight power of National Assembly, while its membership shall be drawn from relevant ministries, parastatals, the private sector, youth organizations and relevant NGOs. The funds of the agency shall also consist of initial take-off grant for funds, monies accruing from 2% taxable dividends of multinational companies, banks, corporate bodies, and other financial institutions, 2% youth development tax on contracts of 100 million naira and above ordered by federal government, 10% of annual budgetary expenditure of states and local government to be allocated to youth employment and development programs. Annual budgetary allocations are appropriated by National Assembly for that purpose. Interest on investment of agencies, monies lawfully received from any other source and which must be disclosed not later than 90 days. Donations and contributions lawfully received by the agency from any other source. In the National Youth Employment and Development Advisory Council. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, another important aspect of this legislation is the establishment of an interministerial council to be known as the National Youth Employment and Development Council, to be chaired by Mr. President. Membership of the council shall include governors of the 36 states, Minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the Minister of Labour and Productivity, and the Minister of Youth and Sports. The function of the council shall include to serve as a clearinghouse on all youth policies matters of national interest and to elevate concern for the problems and aspirations of the youth to the priority of interministerial level at the national agenda. Coordinate and streamline youth employment and development activities at the federal and state level, as well as the role of the private sector and NGOs in line with the provision of this Act. Purpose, policy recommendations on matters concerning youth employment and development, including the utilization of youth development fund, serve as a link between government, the private sector, NGOs to ensure that the provision of this Act are implemented and their effect reach the intended beneficiaries, the youth of this country. Mr. President, my distinguished and fellow colleagues, this bill is therefore anchored in the belief that young people are a force for peace, democracy, equality, and good governance, a catalyst for national consensus building, and an essential resource for a sustainable development and poverty eradication, and the hope for a better society. Mr. President, my distinguished and fellow colleagues, as a youth-centered chamber, I solicit your support and commitment towards solving one of the most significant national challenges facing our nation, guaranteeing a sustainable future of hope for the Nigerian youth. I thank you for your support towards the speedy process and passage of this bill into law, and therefore move that this all-important bill be read the second time. Thank you, Mr. President, my distinguished colleague.
Senator Utazi.
Thank you, Mr. President, for giving me the opportunity to speak to this all-important bill. As said by our friend here, Abang Bossi, our in-law too. This bill is very, very important and fundamental to solving the youth unemployment in this country. I have said it in different fora, sometimes at the floor of this Senate, that if we do not do anything about the unemployment of the youth, which is a time bomb that is ticking, it will do something to this nation. We have to prepare and have a very well thought out package, as the one as represented by this bill. Mr. President, you say if we do not plan ourselves and make sure that the private sector drive the economy of this country to create employment, it will be a very, very big disaster with all of us here. Mr. President, the whole money we are spending on defense in this country, if we put half of it to employment creation for the youth, we will discover that the budget for the defense wouldn't have even be there, because they will not have any job to be doing. But if we don't do so, the youth will become restive, and the security agencies will be busy chasing people there. And that is only looking at the effect instead of looking at the cost. That's what we have always been talking about. So, Mr. President, everything that needed to be said about this thing to make sure that it's passed has been said here can pass. But I disagree with the 100 million he's talking about. I'm talking about 1 billion, instead of 100 million. And the percentage that he said that is going to form the fund for this exercise, it should be up to 1 billion, not 100 million. 100 million cannot go anywhere. But if that notwithstanding, I am supporting this bill, and I hope that my colleagues here will also support it, so that the youth will have a place in our planning here. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Senator Benga Shafa.
Thank you, Mr. President. Benga Shafa, representing Lagos East Senatorial District. I want to seriously thank the sponsor of this bill. As much as I could see that all the points adduced in this bill really fit the emergence of another agency. However, I have a problem somewhere, and that problem is in the funding area. If you look at page 4 of this report, funding of the agency, the bill is proposing that there should be an establishment of the National Youth Development Fund. And how is this agency going to be funded? When you look at A to H, I am seeing a situation where we are going to run into a constitutional problem. Not even one. I don't know how we are going to get around having an initial take-up grant for the fund. B, monies accruing from 2% taxable dividends of multinational companies, banks, corporate bodies, and other financial institutions. 3, 2% youth development tax on contracts of 100 million and above awarded by the federal government. 4, 10% of the annual budgetary expenditure of states and local governments to be allocated to youth employment and development programs. And on and on and on like that. These are constitutional issues which I believe has not been addressed by this bill. The bill is beautiful, it's good, we need it, but here is a major problem that we need to look at. How can we scale through these problems? Thank you, Mr. President.
Anybody contributing before I put the question? Yes, Mr. Ogala.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I am First Ogola, representing Bayelsa West. This bill that is repealing the National Directorate of Employment and creating a new establishment for the development of employment for our youths is commendable and needs to be supported. Your Excellency, the issues that have been raised by the last speaker can be addressed during the public hearing, and it does not really subtract from the bill the noble objectives that have been enunciated by the sponsor, Senator Albert Basiakpan. And so this is a bill that is that solves all the problem of all the members of this chamber and all Nigerians.
And therefore, I urge all of us to support it, and I urge Mr. President to put the question, because every family has unemployed graduates, unemployed, unskilled laborers, and people who need to be engaged. And if there is a bill that raises even funding, that through taxes and levies, that can fund this program better than what has been in the past, then it needs our national support overwhelmingly. Accordingly, I plead with my colleagues that Your Excellency, the President should put the question.
Distinguished colleagues, point of order, Senator Sekipo.
Mr. President, I think some of the work we have to do here is to guide ourselves when we are taking certain major decisions that has to do with money. Before I give the explanation, let me come by Order 77.3. A compendium of the background information and financial implications shall accompany every bill. Now, Mr. President, we've taken one bill. In that particular bill of the CBN is an existing corporation. We're only amending fees, correcting the way they spend money. In this particular bill, we are expanding the scope of what is being done, and then suggestions of spending of money and take-off funds have been mentioned. Funding have been mentioned. Now, a basic question is this, because there's no compendium. If there is compendium, we will be able to know how much do we need to actually take off. Now, you don't know that one. If you don't know that one, how do we go about it? And then the constitutional crisis may likely raise. I am not against the bill, but Mr. President, I want to advise that we have a compendium of financial implications, so that side by side, as we are taking the bill, we'll be able to know how much money will be needed for its implementation.
Senator Abasakwan,
my distinguished colleagues, Mr. President, the structure of NDE is already established in both at the national and at the 36 states of the federation, including Abuja. The structures are very elaborate. So we are not creating a new agency.
But you are giving new responsibilities that might result to get excess more funding. No doubt about that. So there are two ways to go about this. I can put a question, or you can take note of the observation of Senator Sekipo and see whether you can come back with one that has a compendium. The choice is yours. If you want me to guide you, I'll tell you to take the latter one. Okay. Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that this bill be read the second time, say aye. Aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to repeal the National Directorate of Employment Act, Cap N28, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, and to establish the National Youth Employment and Development Agency to provide for the promotion, coordination, and employment of youth throughout Nigeria and for other matters connected therewith, 2017, second reading.
A bill for an act to repeal the National Directorate of Employment Act, Cap N28, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, and to establish the National Youth Employment and Development Agency to provide for the promotion, coordination, and employment of youth throughout Nigeria and for other matters connected therewith, 2017, second reading taken. This bill is referred to the Committee on Labour, Employment and Productivity report back in 4 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the seventh order of the day is the second reading of the Unclaimed Dividends Funds Bill 2017. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Thursday, 9th March 2017. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Robert Boniface move the motion for the bill to be read a second time.
Senator Boniface.
Why don't you decline it?
Yes, okay. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, yes, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, I
move and present.
Yes. I'm looking for the. Yeah, I want to declare them.
You have only 15 minutes.
No, sir. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to move that the bill on unclaimed funds be read the second time.
Go ahead.
This bill is being sponsored by myself and Senator Mustafa Bukar.
Yes, Leader.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, I move that we suspend Order 13 to enable the Senate to sit beyond 2 o'clock.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I reluctantly rise to second the motion moved by the leader that we extend our rules, suspend our rules to enable the Senate sit beyond 2 o'clock. I so second.
Those in favor that we sit beyond 2 o'clock say aye. Those against say nay. I'll put the question again. Those in favor that we sit beyond 2 o'clock say aye. Those against say nay. The nays have it.
Mr. President, I want to thank you and my colleagues for giving me the leave to present this lead debate. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I am leading the debate on the bill for the implementation of unclaimed funds legislation in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. This bill seeks to provide a legal framework for how the government disposes the funds that have been left unclaimed in the custody of financial institutions for a space of time. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the term unclaimed funds primarily refers
Finish.
What do I do now?
Go to conclusion.
Okay. Mr. President, I'm going to the conclusion. My highly respected colleagues, as an economic leader, especially in Africa, Nigeria has a window of opportunity to capitalize on both the significant population and economic growth to benefit its populace. Similar to other developed countries, Nigeria has the financial and non-financial sectors, business infrastructure, technology know-how, and legislative support to implement a successful...
Senator Boniface, can you just summarize it because it's a long thing now? Because, all right. Your mic.
Order, please. Order.
According to the common law principle of bona vacantia, the government is the right custodian and owner of unclaimed funds, following any failure in the revocation of funds with their rightful owners. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, currently there is no program in place to address unclaimed funds deposition in Nigeria, which companies and government agencies are using to unjustly enrich themselves to the detriment of rightful owners and their beneficiaries. The unclaimed fund legislation will provide a mechanism for the Nigerian government to finally address the disposition of unclaimed funds, protecting the property rights of the citizens and also generate additional revenue for socio-economic development. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I thank you for your attention and therefore respectfully urge you to give this bill the necessary support for detailed consideration. I so move.
Senator Adamalu. Senator Aliru. Senator Aliru. You are seconding the... Are you seconding?
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Mohammed Adamu Aliru. I rise to second this very important bill. Unclaimed funds are funds that have been lying waste for over 3 to 4 years, and there is no legal backing for government to use these funds. This bill will give government the right to use these funds for developmental purposes. I therefore second this very important bill, and I urge all my colleagues to do the same. Thank you.
Distinguished colleagues, I think let me just put the question. Those in favor that this bill be read the second time say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Flag of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to provide for the reporting, managing and enforcing of unclaimed funds, to establish the Unclaimed Funds Regulatory Authority and Unclaimed Funds Regulatory Trust Fund and other purposes connected thereto, 2017, second reading.
A bill for an act to provide for the reporting, managing and enforcing of unclaimed funds, to establish the Unclaimed Funds Regulatory Authority and the Unclaimed Funds Regulatory Trust Fund and other purposes connected thereto, 2017, second reading taken. This bill refers to capital market report back in 4 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the 18th order of the day is the second reading of the Southeast Development Commission Establishment Bill 2017. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Wednesday, 22nd June 2016. Mr. President, you are willing to invite Senator Samuel Anyau to move the motion for the bill to be read a second time.
Senator Anyau.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, very good colleagues. My name is Senator Sam Anyang. I represent Imo East, Imo State. Mr. President, this bill is being co-sponsored by myself and Senator Stella Odwa and all the members of the Southeast senators. Mr. President and distinguished colleagues, permit me to lead the debate on this very important bill before us today. This bill was read for the first time in this chamber on the 22nd June 2016. Essentially, Mr. President, the bill seeks to provide for the establishment of the Southeast Development Commission to act as a catalyst to develop the commercial potentials of the Southeast, as well as address the gap in infrastructure development of the region. The Southeast as a region has contributed immensely to the overall development of Nigeria in terms of technical, educational, tourism, sports, and technological know-how, and other areas of endeavor. Yet, the federal government is not doing enough for the region. What the region requires now from the rest of the country is support and understanding, and this will help to engender a sense of belonging to the Nigerian project. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, the Senate is in the right position to show maturity in the face of the plethora of problems and challenges facing the geopolitical zone. Okay. In conclusion, Mr. President, these bills seek to formulate policies and guidelines for the development of the Southeast, conceive, plan, and implement in accordance with the set rules and regulations, projects and programs for the sustainable development of the Southeast in the field of roads, education, health facilities, employment, industrialization, agriculture, housing, and urban development. In conclusion, Mr. President, Mr. President, it is important to know that this bill, the financial burden is not on the federal government. Its operation will be funded by the 15% of the federal allocation to all its member states. There's no financial implication on the state. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, my colleagues.
Deputy Senate President.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I only rise to extol the credentials of this Senate as a bipartisan, patriotic citizens. This is one rope that holds this country together. I look forward to the support of this distinguished Senate to this bill.
Distinguished colleagues, let me put the question. Those in favor that this bill be read the second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to establish the Southeast Development Commission in the Federal Republic of Nigeria to act as a catalyst to develop the commercial potentials of the Southeast and other connected matters, 2017, second reading.
Distinguished colleagues, let me just. A bill, we have not finished the process. Distinguished colleagues, we have not finished the process. A bill for an act.
Order, please. Order. Senator. The distinguished senators, please take your seat. Order.
Distinguished colleagues, a bill for an act to establish the Southeast Development Commission in the Federal Republic of Nigeria to act as a catalyst Senator Tazi, take your seat, please. Distinguished colleagues, a bill for an act to establish the Southeast Development Commission in the Federal Republic of Nigeria to act as a catalyst to develop the commercial points of the Southeast and other connected matters, 2017, second reading. This bill is referred to Committee on Establishing and Public Matters to report back in 4 weeks. Distinguished colleagues, in the development of a nation, the unity and development of a nation goes sometimes beyond just a bill. I want us all to see that we all have responsibility to bring down the tension in this country, bring about unity, and I think that we all have that role to play. In doing this, we're showing as a Senate that we're ready to listen and look at the pros and cons. But I think the issues go beyond just this bill. Distinguished colleagues, as some celebrate for this, I think there's still more work we need to do. There are people that we are leading that we must go back and play our own role, uniting this country and bringing this because development commissions all over the country might not bring the result that we need. We need to do more than this, and I hope this good faith will ensure that we all play a role. We only have one country. Thank you. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues. Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, I move that we step down the remaining items on the order paper till another legislative day.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion that we step down the other items on the order paper to another legislative date. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that we step down all other items on the other paper to another legislative date say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, having concluded today's proceedings on the order paper, I hereby move that the Senate stands adjourned until tomorrow, Thursday, 8th June 2017, at 10 a.m. prompt.
Mr. President, I rise to second the motion for adjournment that having exhausted all the items of the other paper for today, that this Senate stands adjourned to Thursday, the 8th day of June 2017 at 10 a.m. prompt. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the Senate stand adjourned to Thursday, 8th of June 2017, 10 a.m. say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The Senate is accordingly adjourned to Thursday, 8th June 2017 at 10 a.m. prompt.